have very good position of the implant placement. So for the final prosthesis, we have to make sure everything is okay, especially for the implant integration. So first, move with the final impression. We go into to place the coping. So we call coping tray. So in the mouth, I always recommend you go for the most posterior one first, because why? We have kind of very lesser space for working and vision. Yeah, so and then another one from the right side. Sometimes, still remember, just before you go into have the good sitting, you just double check, because sometimes they have an internal lock or engagement. But this one is non-engagement, so trong kia nhỏ
mình có cái volume hai bên mình mở cái volume có volume hai có cái volume hai bên.
So with the non-engagement coping, you just like turn around or move the coping around. If completely seated, just like clockwise, just move around and there's no movement. Then that's the time you can tighten the screw. Okay. Then two in the front. The front is straight, so that is more easy for you. Okay, so after sitting, just please double check with the handle screw or hex screw to make sure it's already tightened. Or if you can make sure, then you just like using the blow air to see the sitting of the coping and the multi-unit abutment. And then at this time, required for the panoramic X-ray. If you don't have the panoramic X-ray at your clinic, you can go for the apical X-ray, yeah, to check the sitting of the coping. And then after that, you try to sprint the copings together with the archway. So here we have the archway, so try to adapt it. And sometimes the archway is not really ready, then you have to justify the wines using the orthodontic wine bender. Okay, so make sure the wire is touch the coping passively, okay, not too forced. And as you see on the coping, they have like some gap here, so just try to lie on the gap so that you're gonna have very good primary support. Okay, it seems ready for this one. Okay. Alright, and then recommend always go for the back first. You see, only one ligature I already stabilized the archway, but then just double check. And then move on with the other side, on the right. And as you can see, it's already stabilized. But if you are still unsure for this one, you can make one more, or like completely like R4. So I recommend for 4. Okay, it's completely in the position and no movement. And then next step, we're gonna stabilize it, double stabilize it with the loop survive. Okay, so on this procedure, I need the help of my assistant. So sometimes when you loading the loop survive, the assistant will hold the curve one of the explorer to fully loading around the coping to make sure it's already make sure the loop survive will flow over the archway, because sometimes when you push the final impression material, sometimes it can be like a micro movement. And setting time for this one maybe 60 seconds. Just wait. While waiting, you can prepare the open tray and make tray in it. And then you can do the tray in the tray. So as this tray is already been prepared, so I have it very nice. And you're gonna close the tray using the pin wax to support the impression material. So as we're working on the model, so I prefer to place some Vaseline to make sure the material and the coping can be somehow separated and helping out for later move take out the impression. because as you see here, we didn't put any soft tissue, so sometimes the material can flow underneath, so you can have a little bit difficulty to remove the impressions.
Cái này chỉ là mẫu hàm nhưng mà lên mình.
Yeah, this one Dr. Lam already emphasized. This one is just going for this patient, not your own patient. Okay? Because this patient doesn't feel anything, so we make sure that he can feel something. Okay, so we have the try. For me, my tip and tricks on the clinical cases, I just like make sure the location of my access of the coping, so I try it again and a little bit pressing out. So you can see we already have the mark. Okay, so now we move on the final loading impression material. Okay, ready?
Yes.
Go. So as you see, I always go with the back first and underneath the bridge first, because sometimes you have a very nice tissue profile, so make sure the putting or flowable material can occupy those spaces. And sometimes at the back, if you want to have very nice arch extended cantilever, so we can also put some putting on. Okay, the way you see, you always go like what do you call that, left or right, laterally, and then make sure vertical impression. So here you already have the mark, then follow gently. So as you see this side, we are also like using for finger to stabilize the patient jaw, and then also using your thumbnails to stabilize the impressions. So setting of this impression gonna take maybe 3 to 4 minutes. Okay, so it's already set, and then you're going to remove some opening of the screw, because sometimes the material will flow in and you have a little bit difficulty to adapt the screwdriver. Okay. And again, using at the back one, you just try to use the shortened screwdriver, because sometimes the patient or mouth open getting some limits. Okay. And if you have like a little bit difficulty to remove the back most posterior screw or the implant, then I can show you the tip to remove it. And then after it's unscrewed, you can using your hand and remove the coping screw. So that once you lift up or pull out the impression, the patient will not have any trouble with the screwing. Okay. Then gently, left and right lateral, move. So this is it. Very nice tissue profile. I think this Dr. Now tissue profile.
What do you mean?
Okay, so we already have the impression. So we move on with the by recognition. One more very important thing. For this step, you are the one who do this, not the technician. So you will be the one who adapt the analog on the coping. And again, you can notice if ever the screw or the analog have the hex or the engagement, you have to double check on the impression coping too. Okay, so xong rồi lấy cây thẳng đặt cho dễ. Ok. See, this one, this has the hex, so when you sit it, you can hear the clicking sounds, or like you can rotate around, and the analog will not move. That is mean it's sitting. Okay. Okay, so this is it. So this one is, you can already confirm to the lab is already seated, so the lab will do their work. Now back to the patient mouth. We have to move to the bioregistration. So, so this is all being prepared. So try to adapt it and then check out if ever the temporary touching the abutment, then you have to justify or adjust it to make it completely spacing. And as the Dr. Lung always recommend, sometimes you have to make to tell the lab to extend the denture up to the back part because it's gonna have very good support.
So for the biting neck, it's very important to extend on the back in the retrosmolar zone at the mandible. It's a mattress better to extend to the palate so you can have support better. Because all the area where is the implant, because you have the flap, the change, everything, you have also some implants adjustment. So we use some mucosa where there's no surgery on the back. So to have a good support during the device registration.
Ok, Okay, and then we will sit the cylinder. One more thing to emphasize, this furulus is going to be spread out circularly. Yeah. Okay, after checking and sitting, everything's ready, you let your patient to close, or maybe sometimes your patient have a little bit difficulty of closing, you have to correct it. So this patient, I think she or he has very good bite. Okay, so.
And this one you have to make sure that the vertical dimension is exactly like before surgery. Before surgery, you already mark the vertical dimension. So now we try one more time to check the video. Is this correct?
Yeah.
So we ask the patient bite.
So make sure the patient will follow your order. Once she or he bite, it's not movement. Okay. And another thing to emphasize on this case, if ever when you try in and the cylinder is too high and touching the upper, because sometimes the patient occlusion, so you have to cut off or reduce the height of the cylinder. Okay. So I'm going to have to stabilize the index with the Luxabite. So as you see, we access the hole and gently loading the materials.
And in real patient, you pay attention to not to inject too deep, because it can go inside the suture, and when you remove it, the suture can go with the bite. So sometimes if you want to make sure, you can use some glove. Yeah, your glove, you just perforate, so you put on the cylinder to prevent the material go in the undercut area.
Okay.
Sure.
After loading the material for the index to stabilize, you can always follow on the occlusion bite. So, like Dr. Lam said yesterday, the less material you use for the bite registration, the accuracy you get.
So this one, because we would like to honor the tooth contact, so not to use too much material. And sometimes, like we see yesterday, when Dr. Hieu inject too much, the material go to undercut, and when we remove the bite material, and it's difficult to put it back on the model. So in this case, we have to make sure we have to adjust. We have to take we have to adjust some bite, some excess material. Now you already seen the whole workflow: implant placement, impression, abutment level, and also the bite registration. Now we send the true information to the lab, and they will produce for you a temporary bridge immediate loading. So, and any questions so far? Yes.
For the impression stage, you cut off the hole on the impression tray, and it's quite a big hole. Does it affect the stability of the impression material versus what I usually do? I locate and I trim 4 holes individually.
Yeah, thank you for your question. Your question is why we open window too big. So why we don't use like a small hole? To relocate exactly where the access hole. Yes, it's a good question. But actually, on the impression copy, already splinted with a very rigid bar. So that's why the implant, the upper position is not affected by any the material itself. It's just like for some mucosa, something like this. But all the implant, all the upper position already very stabilized already. Yeah. But in case before if we don't split, sometimes we have to locate the only very small hole, and we don't want to open the big window. But now it's, I think that we have already some seat belt already. Because the model is very, there's no wetting, so it's very, sometimes difficult to remove.
But inside the patient mouth, real one, you're gonna have a little bit moisture, so it's very easy to take it out. But for me, it's okay.
Yeah, sure. It's okay.
Answer Dr. Arvin's question. Sometimes you have to make sure the window will access directly to the cylinder.
No, not the window, this window. Window for impression stage.
Ah, okay.
This is not in this window. This window. The question of
open tray,
is very,
technique.
very good question, open tray technique. Because if you use the small hole, it's difficult for you to locate, right? But we have less pressure during impression taking. But now, because all our impression coping already splinted together with the metal bar, also with the Lisa bite, so it's not does not affect on the decision.
Okay, so as you see, we already have very good bioregistration. For me, I always recommend this bioregistration should be stabilized on the removable impression. This means the lower. So follow up on the next procedure for final cast mounting. So then we can remove the cylinder. And sometimes, if ever, you check to make sure the material is already occupied the space, but if you have any doubt at the mobility or stability of the cylinder, you can add more on this side, because at this time patient is already open the mouth to make sure this cylinder is in. Yeah.
So now we have already all information.
Again, this guy is very tiny and not really friendly sometimes. Okay, and here you go. For me, on this case, I recommend I will go a little bit more on this side to make sure it in. But so far, it's been good.
Yeah, but it's always for safety. Always
Yeah.
it's good to have the cylinder.
Always double check.
Yeah, event it around material is better. That's why we check with lot from buccal after we add more from the off-visual. So we have the whole cylinder embedded inside the material. So on patient now, we're gonna put some healing cap, on the abutment to prevent the soft tissue go in, and we can dismiss the patient.
Okay, so
Cái này là cho hỏi
Yes.
Việt Nam là thứ nhất là làm cái hàm áp đầu tiên.
Đúng rồi, exactly, yeah. This one, the first stage, like we place implant immediately, and then we take the bite impression. We send both information to the lab. So the lab produce temporary bridge, as you observed for the case yesterday. We did the same thing. Yesterday or before yesterday, we had one very good question from Dr. Đức. When we do a lot of bone reduction, bone reshaping, so the problem with the bite, it means when we use the bite index, here we call the bite index in patient mouth, it's not stable because we reduce a lot of bone, That's the reason why it's always good to extend in the palate of the patient to have some support from mucosa. And for the mandible, it's better to extend it to the back area, the retromolar molar. So you have some support from mucosa in the area where there's no implant. So that's why you can have like some stability of the bite index, and then you will connect with the temporary cylinder, because once it's connected to the cylinder, it's good, you don't care about all the support. But before connecting the cylinder, it's very good to have some support from mucosa during the bite respiration. It helps you a lot. Okay. So that's all the tips we'd like to share with you. So now it's your show time.
Yeah.
Any question? No, any. Okay, now we gonna do it on the board. Yes, please.
Lại cho em cái lấy làm cái khóa khóa đi khóa. Dạ vâng.
Nó chuẩn bị trước khi mổ rồi.
Chuẩn bị
cái index.
Index này.
Vâng.
Cái này đó. Yeah, the question is how we produce it by index. So it's easier. It's like it depends on the patient. If the patient have already a very good denture with a good function and good aesthetic, you just take impression, or you just use the available denture of the patient, and you ask your lab to do a duplicata, do a copy of the denture by transparent resin. It's so easy because they just put on
phải có kế hoạch chuẩn bị lý lượng chứ cứ bảo tôi chụp
Ép nhiều á. Yeah, they just put in the molding, and then they produce the duplicata and the denture through the transparent resin. In this case, the patient has nothing. You have to do exactly like the traditional protocol to produce a removable denture, and then you do also a duplicata